Why do founders feel they have to look perfect? It's the rough edges, the vulnerable moments that actually build trust. And no one knows that better than Bryce North, founder and CEO of Don't Be a Little Pitch. He hit rock bottom, lost his business, his team, and still rebuilt. Now he helps founders tell their stories, their real stories, not the polished ones. This is Bryce North on My Most Authentic Life. Bryce, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. Again, this is your first video, and I'm honored to have that opportunity with you. But at the same time, I think we have a lot in common in terms of what we're going to talk about today. Storytelling, authenticity, all the good stuff.
Absolutely. And you're part of history. No pressure.
Let's do it.
But that's a great place to start because it's about being intentional on our founder journeys. Storytelling is something that you know a lot about. It goes back to that pivot, that wake-up call moment that you had in your life. So take us back to that chapter in your life, the Trap Tap chapter of your life. What was that all about?
Yeah, that really started my adventure towards authentic storytelling. And when I say that, I learned a lot before that on what kind of drives interest through proper storytelling. When it comes down to storytelling, it's just how do we polarize people? And when I say polarize people, we need to find a side that elicits emotion, but makes people choose. If you're going to have lovers, evangelist people in your company that are screaming your names at the top of the rooftops, then you're going to also have people who hate you, and you can't be scared of that. So I discovered this not during Trap Tap, which is one of my most successful startups at the time, but before that, when I actually had my rock bottom moment. And these moments in time are what actually define you, but more importantly, what callous you. And we're talking about being callous is callous in emotion, callous in trying, and callous in not being afraid to go out there. So I had my rock bottom moment where I knew what happened at this time, nothing was going to get more worse than this. And I say that from time to time as going forward to kind of putting myself out there. But this happened, I would say, maybe about 8 years now. 8 years ago, I moved, my whole life to a brand new city through my startup, and we had a little bit of cash left over, maybe about 60 days, and so we raised a little bit of family money from my business partner, just because we knew going out through this program offered a lot of money upon acceptance. But when we got there, and we started talking to the administrators, we got rejected because someone else with the same name and the same idea already applied beforehand. So we found that someone stole our company name and stole our product, made a fake website, applied for the funding and got it. So there I was, $0 borrowed money, and I had to call up my business partner. And long story short, he quit on me. My engineering team quit on me. I called my girlfriend. She broke up with me, and it was pouring and raining. And I was riding my bike, and my bike got stolen. This happened in a span of 4 hours. All of us together. And so this is kind of what made me realize that, okay, life can't get harder than this. But where the big idea came from all this is that before Trap Tap, I was asked to speak on stage and talk about my experiences and what kind of gave me that raw grit to keep going. And again, I told this story and something magical happened. I got so much business offers and so much interest and so many people asking me to speak more. It was this vulnerability, this moment of just pure crap in my life that people actually connected with. And it made me really understand how to tell a story because we have our heroes. We have those people we look up to in business and in life. And here's the issue with that. We can't relate with them. And so our goal, as business owners is not to say why I'm great and why things aren't perfect and why this business is the next biggest thing. Because we don't relate with superheroes or relate with people we don't have a connection with. Those that are too far away. We put those on a pedestal, that means they're out of reach. But if you hear someone that you really do follow or someone you really do admire talking about, a rock bottom moment story or maybe something in their life that made them go through a transformation, you're going to say to yourself, I can connect with this person. I actually trust this person because I went through the same thing. And so that was a big moment for us during Trap Tap is we came out and we just told our stories. We told the authenticity around what we're doing, and more importantly, what the product means it's for its users and for ourselves, and not just the flashy features that it offers. And so that's what kind of got me to the storytelling side of things.
Amazing. And that's such a great place to start, that rock bottom moment, because really it sets the scene for everything else that follows. But there's so much to unpack there that I want to get into. And so when you're at that 60-day mark, 60 days of capital left, right? What are you going through? How are you dealing with the uncertainty, the unknown?
That's the hardest part. You put everything, this is year 4 into this company. I put everything I had, everything that I've owned, everything I believed into this, those that are questioning you, those, that want you to fail. It was a lot, but I bet my friendships, my reputation, everything on that. When in the end, did that really matter? No. But at the time, it seemed like a lot. I think a lot of us are scared to kind of put that forward of losing everything. But it was nerve-wracking. It really was. But in a way that kept me pushing me forward and forward. And my happiest moments, I think I can remember just striving with my team, trying to make things happen and make it work. But more importantly, I think through all of this, it allowed me to have a story to lean on. As storytellers out there, or people who are growing their businesses, we're not bad storytellers, we're bad story collectors. And I think when we look at that is, how do we leverage what we've done and what we've gone through to actually build a lot of trust? And I want to stay with this, is that I have 2 rules when it comes down to growing your brand or your business or personal that actually allows you to thrive. Number 1 is that people are attracted to other people's rough edges. And so that vulnerability and that trust, those moments where you can connect with people, allows you to be a guru and a leader in the space, allows you to put yourself out there so they can have a connection with you. And once people do have that connection with you, then rule number 2 kicks in, is that people always buy better versions of themselves. That could be power, that could be freedom, that could be products, that could be whatever you're selling or you're pitching. And so there's an interesting study out there actually, is that when it comes down to new businesses you've never done any sort of business with, the people you trust the least is the CEO, the C-suite, and those in power. The people you trust the most are those third-party reviews, those validations from the public. But I think at that point in time, how do you focus so much on trust and in these moments of putting yourself out there that you can connect with people so that they do convert, so they do start signing up and following you, so you can sell them, preach them, or whatever you have to do.
Okay, there's so much good stuff there. Let's focus a bit on vulnerability and really what makes the present day entrepreneurial journey, the founder journey, relatable, approachable, is when people put themselves out there and are vulnerable. How did we get to this evolution where before what was highly regarded was being unapproachable?
Good question. I think, what I believe is there's so much bullshit out there in terms of fake scams and sales, and everyone's saying that they're great, which, makes me believe that, we just have bigger bullshit meters. And when we see people claiming to be great, or they have these expensive cars, we want that. We strive to have it. We follow them, we get burned. Now everyone's trying to play that game. I think when we actually take it back and then see someone who is being real and raw, our trust kind of goes up, and you're thinking to yourself, man, if that person's willing to talk or put themselves through that, then how do I trust that they're going to help me with their product or their service? And there's one thing I've actually learned throughout the PR game or the service industry, is that clients and customers in the end, they just want you to care as just much about their business as they do. And so if you can kind of show that you've put that much effort into your own life, then you've broken the one rule that I think that, or I shouldn't say the one rule, but the one issue I think majority of marketers have, is that marketers can't market themselves. That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Why would you hire someone who's not able to go and do what they've built for their own company and try to help you out at the same time?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm proud about of our team and everything we're doing. Like, we're entrepreneurial, we failed, we've learned, we've scaled, we've grown companies, we've raised money, we've done the whole investor game. I've been there before, and I'm excited to help people who are going through that or their next stage. And I'm never going to claim that, I can help you without doing it myself. So I think this trust comes through seeing what you've been through before, and allows you to put yourself out there in a way that connects with people. That's just the most important part.
Yes, and building that trust comes down to owning your story, becoming a storyteller. How do we make that transition from collectors, like you said, to becoming storytellers? It sounds like when you stepped on stage and shared that moment, that rock bottom moment, you made that pivot.
Yeah, I mean, founders aren't boring. We're not boring business people. It's a communication problem when we look at this. It's not an intelligence thing. It's an articulation type of game. I think a lot of us just don't understand actually how to take something that's a movement or in a story and create that story arc. And it's not that hard. It's just, how do we just be the guru and the leaders in the space that actually persuades people. And to do that, it's just telling stories in your journeys and the reason why you're doing for it. It's why people always say, document your journey and start putting it out there. There's about building influence. It's not building why you're great and taking over the world. It's promoting others that have worked with you and showing their journeys. We can connect through others through stories. But here's a fun little secret that I've learned as well too, is that if you want to be a hero in your space, if you want to be a champion in what you're doing, you don't promote yourself. You promote those that you've helped. You talk about their transformational journey. You talk about what they've done before, because as the byproduct, they're going to bring you up with them, but they look like the hero. They're getting featured, and you just actually look like the most important sidekick that got them there. And people want to work with a great sidekick, which goes back to, do you care as much about as my company as I do? And this shows that you do.
That is so on point, and it's something that you talk about that I really resonate with, because inadvertently on this journey that I've been on, I've been doing that by sharing my guest stories, because that's what I really care about, and their story of transformation. But in doing so, it means that I don't have the space to be out there constantly talking about me either. I wouldn't be doing that anyhow. But that balance of sharing the guest stories, which for someone like me is the equivalent of your product, also builds credibility and trust for the overall mission.
So I know we're going to get into like our partnership later on and why we're doing this, but trialing out some of my clients over to you and the feedback I've got them on, this was damn cool. Like, did you hear how I sounded? I never knew my story could come out like that. Like, I've had these moments where, when we started talking about working together, I have no clue. I heard some of your podcasts, but I didn't know how you operate on this new model. So when I hear about how happy my clients are, when I see their moments where they shine, when I can utilize this content a lot more, that just speaks numbers about who you are. And I wasn't focusing on you during that conversation. I was focusing on them and their story. You are unfortunately not the center of attention and can't be. But your job is not meant to be.
Exactly. No, thank you for saying that. And that's when you make that realization as a creator, you lift everything up. And it comes down to what you just said there before about leaning into your story. So and it's something that you discovered after the rock bottom moment, but during the trap tap experience. Does that realization, that aha moment about the power of story, is that gradual? Or does it just hit you one day?
I think it's more gradual. It's more experimentation. This doesn't just give me that aha moment like, oh my God, I just got to tell my story. It's how do I set a foundation that allows me to springboard off of that? And the most important part for myself was realizing, okay, how do I operate in a world of trust? Mm-hmm. And what I do in terms of PR, what you do in terms of your podcast is not about what everyone wants, because everyone wants leads. They want sales. That's the push comes to shove. You get that by forming trust. And so we're in the game of trust generation, not lead generation. Yeah. We're in that game where when somebody hears about you, when someone thinks about you, when they search you, or even when you knock on someone's door, they know who you are. Or when they Google you, you're like, holy shit, okay, yeah, I got to work with this person. Yeah. Right? You're that person that's just primed and ready and good to go because you have that trust generation. You have that reputation that people can lean on and people want to work with. So it's gradual. It's an experimentation, but it's setting those boundaries of who I am and what I've done, who I've helped before. Yeah. Once you set this ground level, you start going to customer journeys and stories and start talking about your expertise. But like every client I ever worked with, can you get me into Forbes? Buddy, you got to earn your stripes. Yeah. Like you want to go to the big out there? Great. I've made it happen before, but here's a fun little secret in PR. Outlets in the PR people themselves, they don't care about what's interesting. They care what drives clicks. Yeah. So if you're featured in a big outlet out there, do you think anyone who doesn't know you is going to click on you? Probably not. So you're going to come back and say, well, PR doesn't work. Yeah, no doubt. PR doesn't work if you do it the wrong way. But same with your storytelling. If you have some sort of progression, some sort of, way that people are following, then yeah, you have multiple storylines, multiple moments for opportunity, and multiple moments to tell stories in different ways around your product, your service, and what you're doing, because you are the guru in this space. You are the leader. This isn't your first or last hurrah. This isn't your first or last product or service. So why not paint a picture of who you are as a founder and a leader that sets the stability of trust so that when you are pitching these solutions, these multiple things that you're offering outside of who you are, they are the solutions to the problem you dictate as a founder and the stories that you tell. And it's actually that gap what creates interesting moments and interesting opportunities. You fail, you try, you keep telling your story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And earning it, which is something that you said there, always has to come with struggle and that cycle of try, test, fail, repeat. But along that journey of struggle, it allows the founder to go from being invisible to highly present and build trust. So how did you identify this broken storytelling on the founder journey?
Yeah, I think a lot of times throughout this, as founders, we want to change the world, but we don't know what world we're in, or we don't know how to articulate what world we're in. And so throughout this whole process, we need to really uncover what makes you unique, of course, what makes you special, what your why is, but allow you to have a voice and opportunity to start testing and start putting it out there. What you think your customers want, what your investors think, what your team and partner thinks, what I think what your customers wants is inherently always wrong. One of us is less wrong than the other person. So how do you know exactly what the market wants? You talk to them. You open and you create a line of communication so your customers can get feedback, so they can tell their own stories and reach out to you. And this is why building trust or vulnerability is scary, because we put it out there and our biggest fear is that, something bad's going to happen. But I think deep down, the biggest fear is nothing's going to happen. As entrepreneurs, it's interesting. When we're in motion, we are super confident. Motion could be moving forward. I'm learning, progressing, and I'm trying new things. When we are moving backwards or failing, that's still in motion. We're still progressing from there. But when we're stagnant and nothing's moving, that's when we panic. And when we panic, we start taking on new things. We start maybe buying new courses or trying new services. We start trying new different marketing situations or tactics. We feel like we're moving forward because we're learning. We're trying it out and we're building it and we feel like we're progressing. And then we're actually putting it out there and nothing's really happening, but it feels good because this is the right direction. Then nothing happens again. And then you try something new and you're back at square one. This is spinning. And I think a lot of us don't understand how to get out of that rut, that spinning momentum of just trying something new. Because I think it's consistency in the end. We don't stick with something long enough to give it credit. We're trying all these platforms, all these different things.
Absolutely.
Foundation, PR, storytelling, it takes time. Let's be honest with that. And so what I've learned through all these entrepreneurs is that you need to cut down the ideation, the mentality of I want this tomorrow. I mean, you want traffic, go do some paid ads. I mean, that will get you what you need. It's going to burn off after time. You're just going to spend a lot of money. But I'm in the game of making things actually work as a center of influence and source. And your stories come with you owning a line of communication or a channel and consistently telling the right things that matter and allowing you to recognize when to pivot into the right moments and the right stories.
Yes. And you said something there as well about fear. And it's something that we were talking about before we jumped on here. How do you handle fear? Because it has to be present. You made a good point that it has to be present every day as part of the daily struggle, the daily grind.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of fears throughout this. I mean, my biggest fear now is just like, what if it all doesn't matter? All right. What if what I'm doing doesn't really have an end game and doesn't change anything? Is it a big waste of time? And so there are ways around and outside of that, but I think the more that we can accumulate along the way, the more callous we are. And we've talked about this. And I think it's these stories and these moments that actually allow you to experiment and gain enough expertise to understand how to pivot through bad moments. Through
resilience.
Itself. Resilience. It's been a fun buzzword has been thrown around, but it's true. And I think the resilience stories there's too much of them these days. I think people over idolize their bad moments with no clear direction. These are trust moments, but they're not lead gen moments. These are moments for gaining attention, but at the same time should not be leveraged for moments of doing business.
Interesting.
Right? These are just a trust factor. Just like I want to have the opportunity in order to gain your respect or your attention, so then I can shift that perception, that narrative on live of who you are and what you want.
Great. Amazing. Yeah, I think this is a good time to start talking about the solution, because what we've been talking a lot about is identifying the problem. You had the lived experience that allowed you to identify the problem. Then you're able to communicate that to the people that you work with. But then you come up with the solution, which is called the Media Mastery Framework. How did that come about?
Because I have a vendetta for every other PR agency out there that makes every client that I talk to, PR doesn't work, or I got coverage, nothing happens. And for my own story, I've never done $1 in paid ads. I've never done any social media. I've never wrote any content. I just told stories in the media. That's what kind of brought TrapTap from We had a napkin drawing in 60 days selling close to $600,000 of the product pre-sale without having anything to delivering it to 20 countries in 9 months. An IoT product that was sold in Best Buy, a hardware product that was, in the realm of hardware, which is extremely hard to do. And so how did we do this? We built up a lot of hype, a lot of interest. So we have this 5-stage pyramid we kind of put people through in this framework because I'm tired of hearing that PR doesn't work. When I agree with you, it doesn't work when you don't do the right things. Long gone are the days of just trying to get you a feature here and there. And we've talked about how these outlets don't care about what's interesting. They care about what drives clicks.
Yeah.
And so if they're looking for clickable moments, then you need to be a source that they lean on and a source that actually makes you important. I want evergreen moments. I don't want people to have to rely on an agency of the rest of their life because we have the connections. You know what matters more than the connections? Being a source of interest. How about a moment where people are knocking on your doors in 6 to 8 months and saying, hey, like Fede, like, I have this story. I want to lean on you. I have a question for you to answer here. You're a go-to guy when it comes down to storytelling and podcasting. What if you had those moments over and over again? People can lean on you for that. And that's through like content gap analysis. That's through right storying and building the right relationships.
Absolutely.
So we built a framework. A framework that makes you go from invisible to someone actually with authority, that actually brings and sets those foundational moments that leans on the next stage over and over again. We're building trust, and that's the real deal behind everything else. It starts with who you are and yourself and your story. It leans more into getting out your authority out there in terms of your expertise. And then we start stacking to places like your customer journeys, their authentic stories. We start going to more deep emotional moments through podcasting. Then we jump into cultural side of things of your team. You'll notice throughout these components, there's nothing mentioned of product. And that's really interesting because we're building this foundation of trust. Now we're getting into why and who you are and what's your why and how that's actually helped previous people get to their moments of time when they're successful. Remember law 2 when I said people buy better versions of themselves? We've already established law number 1 of creating that trust and authenticity. Now we're getting into more of the customer journeys of understanding how they got from point A to point B. And then from there, we stack on more of the product and service and its advantages. We get into directories. We get into more like knowledge panels and authority and visibility online. It's this whole process in this framework that you can, start working with us in, let's say, 6 to 8 months and have this evergreen organic system of attention coming through to you as because you are now our trusted source. I'm talking about speaking opportunities and podcasts and media, not just us knocking on doors trying to get you featured, because we know that doesn't work. And anyone that pitches that, I said I have a vendetta for because it doesn't work. PR done the right way is proper storytelling, and proper storytelling sets you up in a framework that makes people say, I need and I have to work with this guy.
And to help the audience visualize, what are the different steps of the pyramid?
Yeah, and we need to understand like what the purpose of this pyramid is. And I've got it written down here. I want to make sure that I'm articulating this properly. But we want to turn this founder fog into a story that earns attention. I think a lot of us have this fog, this an unrealized idea of where we're going to take this story and why and what it means. And so we want a story that builds a long-term credibility, not just short-term hype. And that's why short, quick features don't really do anything. It's those authentic moments that allows us to build upon each other to really build that foundation, that framework. I want to do this in a short amount of time. PR doesn't take days or weeks. It takes months, but it's not going to take years if done properly.
Yeah.
We can usually lock this and knock it out, I'd say, in 6 to 8 months, usually on the 6-month side where we're building and putting things through. But this is the right authority you need in order to level up to the next point of your stage, earn your stripes through the media and build that trust. So it's a 5-stage pyramid. It goes and takes you from being invincible to influential. And that's the most important part because we have our foundations. It's about owning that narrative across different channels and not just with your own story and yourself, but the customer's journeys, how to articulate those properly and connect with people with moments and times and tell multiple stories.
Yeah.
Just like everyone who wants to be in every single platform out there, it's important to know that you shouldn't just have one story because you're connecting with one type of audience there. You need multiple stories. Your product, your solution, whatever you're offering has different type of customer personas, how people buy. And so these pivotal, storyable moments out there are different ways to connect with people. And so I think that's a hard part that people understand is, okay, what story do I tell? Why not tell the ones that resonate the most? We need to tell more than one. How do we understand which one to tell? That's where we experiment.
Yes.
And that's the hard part, is understanding how do we experiment. And so we need to go and start telling it. We put out feelers. We put out ideas, and we start testing the reactions. This doesn't take such a long time. In 30 days, we can come back and say, this is where the market is trending. This is what outlets want. This is what's going on. And we built that influence, because you need to be one thing when it comes down to a person within your business, is you need to be that person that other people lean on for sources, information. You want organic attention. You want customers knocking on your door. You want opportunities coming to you. Be that person that they trust so much that they're leaning on and asking you for what's coming up next. And that's what we do in this framework. We take people from the foundation, what we talked about a lot, of building who you are, going out and experimenting through a lot of reach. We repurpose a lot of content, so we have these multiple storylines. Then we influence through customer stories and who you are. And the very end of this North Star, we have this power. We have this moment where people are leaning on you and they're utilizing you.
Yeah.
This is like what I mentioned before, where people are, phoning you up to speak, to talk, to be on podcasts, to be a source of information.
Yeah.
And so a little secret of how we get there is that everyone's pitching these reporters, whether they're customers at the same time, of, hey, you wrote about this, or I see you bought this, you would like this. That's not how it goes. It's more understanding this content gap, this analysis of
content gap. Yeah.
And we talked about this. I'm using PR for an example here, but we talked about how these outlets don't care about what's interesting. They care about what drives clicks. So if you go to them and say, I saw you write about this, we'd love to write about this again, you're not going to get very far with them. But if you said, this is what went viral of what you wrote about, that's got the most attention. This is what's trending in the marketplace right now, and I predict how this moment or this story should be your next viral moment. Here's how my product service can support that. Here's how I can support that. And so now you are a person that they can lean on for the future, like, holy shit, like they know what's going on. They're providing me ideas in these viral moments. And that's the whole purpose of this framework in itself. It's giving you just the foundation, but the stepping stones in order to be that person, what you can have opportunity come knocking on your door and attention to be featured everywhere.
And what I love about the pyramid is that at the top you have this star that really it's giving brands and creators the power to change their world.
Exactly. And we need to determine what that world is first, which we come back to that, because a lot of us are just not good at telling stories. We're not. And so we get that out there. And in the end, we extract that emotional story.
Yes. And I want to get into that. That's such a crucial part of the framework, pulling out the emotional origin story of the founder journey. How do you do that?
Power with a purpose. I think we need to really start focusing on that and start getting and asking the right questions. And I think a lot of us have a hard time putting that out there. What we think sometimes won't connect with people are the best story moments, are those that actually have the biggest connection. And so there's always this weird, interesting insecurity that we have in the marketplace, especially with our own stories. It's how we think we are perceived, how we think others are actually perceiving us, and how you are actually perceived. There's always three components to this. And our insecurities always line to how we actually think others are thinking about us. And we're trying to put content that actually fixes that goes around that narrative. We are here, we think we're here, but really the market is saying you're this. Yeah. And so when we find out what are these callous rock bottom moment stories, what are these insecurities of you as a founder, because we have to get those out there, we can now start strengthening and building stories on what your weaknesses are. Yeah. Because just like what I said before about how and what you think your customers want, what your investors, your team thinks your customers want, which is inherently wrong, it's the same thing with your story.
Yeah.
Right? You need to start asking and talking to the market. And we have the power of AI right now to ask us. You should be prompting yourself, where are my weaknesses? Where are my roadblocks based on all the conversations and things that are brought up with you? It'll give you a good analysis of who you are. But now ask it to do that in terms of the media, in terms of your online presence. You'd be interesting to find maybe why people are not buying, because we've done this for a long time before. We can recognize a little bit easier in trying to see, okay, maybe this is why you're not converting. This is why you are not going through and getting the business you need. We don't do lead generation like we've talked about. We do trust generation. And trust generation comes with having that authority and a piece that people can relate with. And it all comes from your authentic story.
Absolutely. And what I love about that is that with your authentic story, in owning your story, you're owning your weaknesses too.
I mean, they're pivotal power moves, right?
Yeah.
And Alex Hormozi talks about this a lot. Whether you love him or hate him, he talks about how he became super successful, when he actually started relating and talking about where he just shit the bed and where he sucked and what happened. That humanizes you as a person. I think it's extremely important to not overdo it and, be perceived as weak. I think a lot of people have that issue. I hear that all the time. I don't want to be weak. But how do you actually tell it in a real way that that just does the job, and it converts that uncertainty into trust?
And that alignment that I have with what you're doing, that realization for me on my own journey came almost by accident. It was almost instinctive to listen and tell the guest story and make sure that comes through, and through that the positioning they do organically is something that's just extra, really.
True. I mean, you came to me and said, our first meeting, I'm a great storyteller. And honestly, I thought, here's another guy telling me who can tell a story, who probably doesn't know the importance of telling a story. It's not about you. But listening to your stuff, you are a great prompter. Right? A great actual physical, real life AI prompter, if you want to call it. But you can prompt people in a way that gets them to open up and tell their own story to the point where they didn't realize they had these capabilities. And I think that what's make a great storyteller is asking the right questions, understanding how themselves they can tell their own story, but more importantly, how can they make other people tell their story just by getting them to open up in the right ways. Once I heard and saw and got that feedback, something that I know it was hard for us to get people to open up, I thought this would be a great partnership idea for us. So I'm excited about that. You're a key component to opening the floodgates of interesting vulnerability through a lot of our clients. And that foundation will allow us to break this up and spin it up and get the right stories out there. And more importantly, they've gone through that process of actually talking about their weaknesses before seeing it out there online. This is such an important step, is being able to talk about it, getting over that fear of releasing it, and seeing, guess what? Nothing's going to happen, at least not yet.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for that confidence. And it's just really interesting, the common ground that a personal growth podcast that gets into the deep layers of transformation and at first glance an edgy PR firm actually have so much in common, which is that pillar story.
And polarizing too, because that's what we do extremely well, is that stories are boring half the time, even though when you can tell it. And the world is so cluttered through crap these days that if you're just not finding a way to be edgy and different and entertaining at the same time, you're not going to win. And one of our biggest secrets of growing business is I just break down people through charm and humor. And it works. Some people hate it, let's be honest, but some people really love it. And with how dry stories are these days and how dry opportunities and moments can be with all this clutter, we need to find a way of sticking out. And there's two ways in my mind, is you got to be yourself and be vulnerable, but you need to do it with a twist and an edge.
I like that. Well, I'm very excited for what's to come and excited about the path forward.
Yeah, me too. It's been really exciting.
And now, as we start to get towards the end, I'd love to give you some space to, based on what we've discussed, or any key takeaways that you want the audience, that you want to leave with the audience, or maybe some advice you want to give to younger Bryce back during his Trap Tap chapter.
Yeah, I know you, like before this call, you brought up an interesting quote that I put out there that's online from years ago. And I thought that kind of resonated, because a lot of the advice I gave when I was younger doesn't really hold true today. But you said one thing that I still truly do believe that holds a lot of merit. What I said is, kind of just keep doing it. And not steal from Nike here, but honestly, the whole idea around this is just to keep pushing and keep trying and keep opening doors. And I still think that holds true. We're so scared of, not just failing these days, but nothing working, that the only way to figure out exactly what people want is just to keep putting everything out there, building content, telling your story, and not start jumping from channel to channel. So the question that I have for everyone who's listening to this, and the question I would ask myself again, if I could meet younger me, is like, what would you do if you weren't scared?
That's such a powerful question. Yeah.
We're just moments away from victory. And when you can position in a way of, what if your first 50 videos were going to be absolute crap? You knew they're going to bomb, but the 51st is where it's going to succeed. You can put a value in each of those 50 videos. So if your 51st is going to make you a bunch of money, each of those failures have an actual reward and a price that's beneficial towards you. It's just a law and the life of rejection. So you've got to actually take a look at how you can value your rejection and understand that it's a consistent game of putting enough content out there and not being scared of the reaction.
1000%. And it brings it full circle to what we said off at the top, that 100 episodes in, you have to put in the reps. Try, test, fail, repeat. And then, because it keeps improving. Episode 100 is going to be way different than episode 1, but episode 200 of the video is going to be way different.
I'm excited for episode 1000. What's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. Can't wait for that. Well, this has been awesome, Bryce. Thank you so much. But now we're going to close off with our rapid fire round. 3 questions I ask every guest. The first one, what's the biggest gift you've discovered about yourself on this founder journey or life journey?
That I have such a high level of energy and ambition to do something that I constantly just keep going and I don't stop. So that's the one biggest thing that I have recognized about myself. But the biggest gift is not caring how those others react to that and stop leveraging and utilizing other people's reactions to dictate how I'm thinking and feeling. Not letting other people's emotions, their thoughts, where they are in life dictate your mindset and where you're going.
Brilliant. Love that. What's been the hardest truth you've had to face?
The hardest truth I've had to face through all of this, honestly, can't do it alone. And as much as we're caught, our own mindsets and our own ways of doing things, putting trust in other people is pretty hard and letting go is pretty difficult. And so empowering others to really help show you where your weaknesses are and your strengths are and actually listening to that and taking that feedback and being okay with that change is probably the biggest.
Love that. And finally, what's your definition of authenticity?
My definition of authenticity is just putting your true self out there, no matter what, not questioning the content, not questioning the reactions, and it's not even caring. I think that if you're starting to think how other people are going to react, you've already kind of lost them right there. So close your eyes and just press go.
Amazing. Well, Bryce, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your insights, and thank you for being the first on this next chapter of the show.
I love being here. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. This was fun.
To come back.
Thank you. That's today's origin story. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to share it with someone who could use a little inspiration. I'm Fede Vargas, and you can connect with me around the web at my most authentic life. See you next time.